In this mini lecture, we're going to look at concepts covered in Chapter 11 on managing human resource systems. Specifically, we're going to look at what is human resource management, what is included in it, and then we're going to look at some laws and regulations. Here are the learning outcomes for this chapter. You may pause here to review them. We're going to start by looking at the definition of human resource management. This is the process of finding, developing, and keeping the right people to form a qualified workforce. So this includes attracting qualified employees through recruitment and selection, developing qualified employees through training and evaluation and performance appraisals, and then keeping or separating from employees through compensation methods as well as employee separation. And as you can see, this is a feedback loop. So as employees leave, we have to recruit new ones, or as we grow, we need to recruit new employees, etc. So we're going to start by looking at federal employment laws, and I have some examples that you can we'll go through it and you can quiz yourself and see if you know the right answer. So we'll start by looking at the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, which says it's illegal to discriminate against employees or applicants because of genetic information. It also prohibits the use of genetic information in making employment decisions and restricts organizations from requesting genetic information from their employees. So let's look at a couple situations. So for example, let's say that Miley has had genetic testing done to determine if she carries a gene which would increase her chance of breast cancer. Is it legal, or we'll say, it is illegal for a potential employer to choose not to hire her based on this information? True or false? That would be true. It is illegal for a potential employer to choose not to hire her based on this information. Okay. Is it illegal? It is illegal for her employer to ask for the results of this genetic testing. That is also true. It is illegal for her employer to ask for the results of this genetic testing. Next, we'll look at the Equal Pay Act, which requires that men and women in the same workplace and in similar jobs, not identical but substantially similar, are paid similarly. So in this situation, we're going to assume that Sarah and Bill work for the same company in similar roles as account executives. True or false? It is legal for the company to pay Sarah less because she has been working at the company 5 years less than Bill. That is true, because in this situation, Sarah has less experience and less time on the job. So they're not discriminating because of gender. They're not discriminating. She's paid less because of less time. It is legal for the company to pay Sarah $10,000 less if she is performing worse than Bill and is paid on commission. This is also true because it's based on performance, not gender. It is legal for the company to pay Sarah less because she is of childbearing age and might need to take maternity leave in the near future, which will cost the company money for replacement while Sarah is on leave. True or false? It is illegal, so that is false. They cannot do that. Obviously, that is one of the whole purposes of this law, so it is not legal for the company to pay her less because she's of childbearing age. We're next going to look at Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which protects employees and job applicants from employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. So let's look at a few examples. True or false? It is legal for a Christian church to prefer to hire individuals who are also Christian. True or false? You might be surprised, but that is true, and that is because, for example, if you're looking to hire a clergy member, it is necessary for them to be of that faith. So in that situation, that requirement is justified. It is legal for a company not to hire Manuela because she is from Germany and does not have a visa to work in the United States. True or false? Is this legal? That's true. And the reason here is because Manuela doesn't have the necessary documentation or visa to be able to work in the United States. It is legal to pay Jose less because he is Latino. True or false? That is false. That is a clear violation of Title VII. They cannot pay Jose less just because he is Latino. Let's next look at the Age Discrimination Act. This protects certain applicants and employees 40 years of age and older from discrimination on the basis of age in hiring, promotion, discharge, compensation, or terms, conditions, or privileges of employment. So let's look at some examples. True or false? It is legal to require that employees be 21 because the establishment serves alcohol. That is true, and that usually depends on the state laws regarding serving alcohol. True or false? It's legal for a company to only lay off employees who are older or near retirement. That is false. That is a clear violation of this act. True or false? It is legal for a company to offer an early retirement package as a way to reduce their workforce. That is true. We usually call this a retirement incentive, and many companies do this when they are struggling financially as a way to decrease their human resource costs. Pregnancy Discrimination Act says that you cannot treat a woman or an applicant unfavorably because of pregnancy, childbirth, or a medical condition related to pregnancy or childbirth. True or false? If Gina applies for a different job, she needs to disclose that she is pregnant. That is false. You do not need to disclose that you are pregnant. True or false? Gina is pregnant. It is legal for Gina's current employer to fire her if she's not performing her job well. That is true. The key here is that she's not performing well, not that she is pregnant. Next, we'll look at the Family Medical Leave Act, which kind of covers a lot of things. So it entitles eligible employees of covered employers to take unpaid job-protected leave for specific family and medical reasons. This includes 12 work weeks of leave in a 12-month period for the birth of a child and to care for the newborn child within 1 year of birth. The placement with the employee of a child for adoption or foster care, and to care for a newly placed child within 1 year of placement. To care for the employee's spouse, child, or parent who has a serious health condition that makes the employee unable to perform the essential functions of their job, or any qualifying exigency arising out of the fact that the employee's spouse, son, daughter, or parent is a covered military member on covered active duty. Or you can get 26 work weeks of leave during a single 12-month period to care for a covered service member with a serious injury or illness if the eligible employee is the service member's spouse, son, daughter, parent, or next of kin. That's military caregiver. Jared and Warren are a married same-sex couple who've decided to adopt a child. Jared would like to take 8 weeks off of work to be with the child after the adoption. His employer must grant him this time off. True or false? That is true. The Family Medical Leave Act applies to any gender, and it does not matter if it doesn't matter. Anybody can request to have up to 12 weeks off if they welcome a new child into their family. Jared's employer, true or false? Jared's employer must pay him for the time he takes off for paternity. That's false. Part of the FMLA, it says that you are entitled to time off, but it does not say that the employer has to pay you. Gina has a beautiful baby girl. She's decided she's going to take off 12 weeks for maternity leave. Is her employer required to pay her? That is false. They are not required to pay her. Wanda's mother is terminally ill. She has asked her employer for a few weeks off to take care of her mother. True or false? Her employer must grant her this time off. That is true. That is covered under FMLA. True or false? False. Corey's mother is an active member of the military. She was injured during a recent deployment. Corey has asked his employer for 1 year off to help care for his mother. His employer must grant him this time off. That is false, but only because he's asking for a year. In this situation, if Corey's mother is severely injured, Corey may ask for 26 weeks off or 6 months. The Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in several areas, including employment, transportation, accommodations, communications, and access to state and local programs and services. Let's look at some examples. True or false? Hector has autism. He has applied for a job sorting mail at his local post office. The post office must hire him because of his disability. That is false. You're not required to hire somebody who has a disability, but you cannot discriminate against them because of it. True or false? Hector is able to do the work required in this job as well or better than the other applicant. It is legal for the post office to not consider him for the job because of his disability. That is false. They cannot do that. They need to give him equal consideration as long as he's able to do the work. Assume Hector is unable to read. It is legal for the post office to not consider him for the job because reading is a requirement of the job. That is true because he doesn't meet the minimum qualification, not because he has a disability. Angelina has MS and is restricted to a wheelchair. Her employer is required to put in an elevator for her so she can safely travel to the various floors in the office. True or false? That is actually false. So the key with accommodations is that they have to be reasonable accommodations. If Angelina is able to have an office on the main floor and isn't required to travel throughout the building and is able to easily leave the building in an emergency without the elevator, then they're not required to put one in. Gordon has troubles with his eyesight and can only see clearly in rooms with a lot of natural light. His employer is required to provide him with a work area with ample natural light. True or false? That is true. That is a reasonable accommodation. Gordon's employer must also renovate the entire office building so it has ample natural light in most areas. True or false? That would be false because that is not a reasonable accommodation. As long as he has a space where he has the ample natural light that he needs, that is sufficient. All right, the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act protects service members and veterans' civilian employment rights. Under certain conditions, this act requires employers to put individuals back to work in their civilian jobs after military service. So, true or false? Joe has just returned from 2 years of service overseas. His employer is required to re-employ him. That is true. All right, some other federal employment laws. There are labor laws which regulate the interaction between management and labor unions. You've probably heard of OSHA, which sets safety and health standards for employers and conducts inspections to determine whether those standards are being met. And then there is the bona fide occupational qualification, which is an exception to employment laws that permits sex, age, religion to be used when making employment decisions, but only if reasonably necessary. And these are strictly monitored as well. All right, so that is an overview of some of the HR laws that are covered in this chapter. If you have any questions, please contact me.